Yo, what's checking, everybody? It's Geoff and Anwar. It's the OrangeBloods Texas Football channel. Do us a solid, like this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, do all those things that we typically ask for every single time we do a video. It's never going to stop. Do it for us, but we'll keep on asking whether you do it or not. Today, Xavier Worthy, a conversation piece here on the channel. There's a lot to unpack, Anwar, with a true freshman that not only starts as a true freshman essentially from day one, which is very unusual. I don't know that people truly completely know the context of what it means at that position at this school to come in and play from Jump Street. It doesn't happen very often, but he's emerged as a focal point in the offense, especially coming out of Saturday's 58-0 win over Rice, where he seemed to be the first, second, and third options in this new passing game under Casey Thompson. It makes you wonder what this offense has planned for him over the course of the rest of the season. And Anwar, there's just a huge conversation to be had about his importance to this team 4 games into his true freshman season. It's a rather, I don't know that we certainly wouldn't have thought this in April, that we're here in September and it's already Xavier Worthy's world and we're just kind of living in it. Is an amazing little turn of events for Steve Sarkisian in year one.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually, Ketch, when it comes to freshmen, every coach is about pumping the expectations, right? They protect the freshmen at all times, right? I mean, to the point sometimes I don't even let them do media interviews because they want to keep them protected and keep them in this shell, this bubble. We call him X the other day during a press conference. You know how hard it is to earn a nickname? I mean, that's, you know how
he gave himself his own nickname though already. He wants to be known as the Flash.
Which, I mean, at this point, who's going to tell him no? I mean, I was in the stadium and I was walking down to the field at the end, and I actually saw a couple of people wearing number 8, gear on them. And I'm like, wow, okay, here we go. I see it. You know, it's, to your point, Ketch, freshmen coming in, receivers having an instant impact. You know, we think of the running back position, right? We typically think, okay, that's the easiest position to penetrate.
And there's a long line of guys at this school that have done it at running back.
Correct. And, you know, and Jake Smith played, a little bit as a freshman as well. But when we start talking about big play kind of potential and what he possesses and what Steve Sarkisian wants from a receiver out there, I mean, right now, Ketch, we put him at the top 2 with him and Jordan Whittington. And there's probably an argument to be had as who you would feel as number 1. I feel like you could go either way. And I feel like I can be convinced either way. If you want to tell me who the number 1 person is, I'm sure Jordan would obviously have his own opinion. But it says a lot. It says a lot for what the talent level that this young man has. I think Sarkisian also talked about the mental makeup that he has, of a guy that even Casey Thompson talked about, Ketch, as a guy that he studies film with. So if your quarterback is coming to you and saying, hey, come study with me, that says a lot about what they think your potential is. And the fact that we've heard nothing but glowing things about him as an athlete, as a person, just an all-around good family, everything. It says a lot about what his future may hold. And to your point, the impact that he might have, not forget future, this season.
Yeah, no, it is. He certainly seems to have a good rapport with Casey Thompson. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're doing this video, is that in game 1 of the Casey Thompson era as starting quarterback for Texas, Worthy was the guy that they went out of their way to get him reps. The first play of the game went through Xavier Worthy's hands, and it was exactly the kind of thing the week before we had talked about. It was interesting that Hudson Card didn't have more of that in the game plan against Arkansas, because if there was ever a quarterback that needed some help, just completing a pass and getting like baby steps of momentum going, it would have been Card. But maybe part of that relationship is he was more of a Jordan Whittington, Joshua Moore kind of centric quarterback. And it's one of the questions that I'll be keeping an eye on this week is does that connection between Thompson and Worthy still seem to be a cut above all of the other receivers that Thompson is working with? One game's too much of a sample, too small of a sample size to draw conclusions from. But, if Worthy gets 8 catches this week after the volume that he got the week before, suddenly I think there's then we start talking about he might legitimately be the number 1 receiver on this team if volume means anything at all. And last week it absolutely did. There's a couple of things I want to get into while we're having this conversation. Historically, though, you mentioned Jake Smith as a freshman that's come in and made plays. My brain of covering Texas football for the last 30 years, first of all, there's not a lot of great Texas wide receivers. So when a guy like Devin Duvernay has that monster season that he had a couple of years ago, you can start suddenly talking about him being a top 5 all-time receiver at the school, because one big season can put you. He had no other seasons. Had the monsters had an all-time great season, and now you kind of talk about Duvernay in these reverent tones that I don't know that you would do at other schools that have had historically more wide-ranging success at the wide receiver position than Texas does. Texas, for all of the NFL success that it's had over the years, not a ton at wide receiver. Mike Adams just got announced into the the Longhorn Hall of Honor on Monday. He's generally thought of in my mind as the first modern receiver to come in and play as a true freshman. That year, he and Lavelle Pinckney both did it under John Malkovich. But Mike Adams was a guy that clearly number 1 guy in that offense as a freshman. Roy Williams did it in 2000 when he was arguably the state's number 1 prospect, a 5-star receiver type. And he ends up being a top 5 NFL draft pick. He's by himself in the scope of all-time NFL type talent coming in and doing it as a true freshman. Roy Williams is that dude. Jordan Shipley's thought of, if not with Roy Williams as the other number 1 wide receiver in school history. He didn't have a big freshman season. In fact, as a true freshman, he tore his ACL. It took him 2 years later to actually have a true freshman season. And, just not the same thing. Devin Duvernay doesn't do it. You start to get to like the Mike Adams of the world had a nice freshman season, but you can count on 5 fingers the number of guys historically as true freshmen, as wide receivers that have come in and done the types of things that Xavier Worthy is doing. And of those guys, I think only Mike Adams in the last 30 years was a day 1 starter. Almost at the moment Worthy showed up in campus and started practicing in August, it was almost immediate that he was working with the first team wide receivers. It took them about 2 days, Anwar, to figure out we're not just going to leave him inside with Jordan Whittington and let our best 2 guys be pigeonholed into the same position. It was Worthy and not Whittington that they moved to the outside and said, take this skinny little 160-pound dude and let him go through all of the physical stuff that typically guys his size don't do. It's an amazing beginning for him, because I don't think in the last 30 years anybody's quite done what he's done as a wide receiver in the first 3 games of their first season on campus as an out-of-state prospect. Like, it's really special stuff.
It is. And I think the thing that you bring up that was kind of one of my, I won't say hesitations, but I just did not know how I was going to translate it, is you can't ignore that he's 6'1" and 160 pounds.
He's not the biggest dude.
He's not. And so I wasn't quite sure how he'd match up against college DBs who might be at that 190-ish, but have been in the strength and conditioning program for
men
for years, right? I mean, I was like, oh no, we'll see, because are they going to jam him on the line? And but clearly we see a couple of things that whatever his body fat is, it's all muscle, right? So whatever he has, that's what he's working with. He does have get off, and we know that Sarkisian is the type of guy that knows how to get his receivers in space and knows how to find the weaknesses in the defense in order to game plan. And this probably should have been for an overreaction Monday. I'm not the type of person that likes comparisons. Everyone's different, right? When people were comparing Jake Smith to some people, I thought of it more like a Percy Harvin more so than Wes Welker, right?
Yeah.
Because got to go to that stereotypical, well, this guy was a white slot receiver. Let's find the other one, right? But,
there's a very obvious one with Xavier, though, isn't there? That's hard to get away from.
I feel like the guy that Sarkisian just worked with last season in Alabama is the guy. It's DeVonta Smith. And that's why I said I get scared of comparisons, but Smith was like, what, 6 foot, 170? Something it's like carbon
4 years later.
Yes. I don't know when he stepped in when he walked in at 140 on campus, right? But he leaves at like 170, and you look at that and you're saying, all right. And I looked up, it's funny, we're on the same wavelength. I looked it up, and DeVonta didn't play a lot as a freshman, got a few more yards as his sophomore season at 693 and 6 touchdowns. Well, Xavier already has 10 for 163 at this moment. So you would say he would be on pace as a freshman to the top what DeVonta did as a sophomore. But, again, I got to look back. I'm assuming he probably wasn't a starter, but probably, more of a role thing. Then in 2019, 1,256 yards, 14 TDs. And then last season, the Heisman season, 1,856 and 23 touchdowns. So that to me is the most obvious comparison when in a world where you don't always enjoy doing comparisons.
Well, and look, if he ever gets anywhere close to those level, that means Xavier Worthy will go down as the greatest wide receiver in school history. Because we can't normalize what DeVonta Smith did at Alabama. It was, Heisman level stuff. He is a special talent, but physically, Xavier Worthy and him had some very similar parallels. We know that Steve Sarkisian, obviously, when he recruited Xavier Worthy as a high school player, even at Alabama, envisioned him as a DeVonta Smith kind of clone. And so, Worthy ends up signing with Michigan. Texas ends up hiring Sark. It goes the way that it goes. And, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out the Sarkisian offense at Texas. And I don't even know how to project what Worthy's numbers will look like at the end of the season. I don't know that if we just took Anwar do we just take the stats from the first 3 games and multiply them by 4? And is that not good enough? Do we need to look at what happened this past week and go, okay, this guy's got some star qualities to him that they're going to want to take advantage of every single week. So maybe prorating his stats forward isn't enough. Maybe, I don't know. He is probably more than any player in the program right now, the wild card of wild cards. Because if you and I were to have a conversation 10 weeks from now and say, well, his numbers kind of tailed off a little bit, he hit a freshman wall, I think we would go, yeah, okay. We could see that happening. That's realistic. But he also showed us against Rice that there's a player in there that has a chance to be a big factor in every game this season. And I don't know what that means over the course. I don't want to get too carried away. Full disclosure, Xavier Worthy's an OrangeBloods athlete. If you go to his Twitter page, it says it. We have to have a baby conversation here in a second about it. Is a little weird to have a guy who's affiliated with the site be a guy that we're talking about in this context. We haven't had it yet, but it is, it's a little interesting. But in terms of the rest of this season, if he goes big, it feels like this team can go big. And if he doesn't, if he goes semi-big, maybe that's what ends up equating to an 8-4, 9-3 type of season, Anwar. If Xavier Worthy finishes with 700-800 yards, 8 touchdowns, that's a big missing link in this offense. but maybe it doesn't get them to the stratosphere. But if you tell me that he ends up with 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns, I'm kind of like, okay, this is a team that maybe can get to Dallas and play for the Big 12 championship, because that's a firecracker in the offense that's hard at this moment to give them the benefit of the doubt and say they absolutely have it, but they really might. And if they do, it isn't insignificant by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, and the thing that Sarkisian has talked about, Ketch, that we've noted is he wants big plays in his offense, and he doesn't want long methodical drives, but he wants to have the guys like an Xavier Worthy that can pull that off. And I thought a little bit what we've seen against Rice is we saw, okay, he's got some playmakers who are in this offense. He's got Xavier Worthy that's there. We clearly know Bijan Robinson exists. Obviously, Roshan has done something, and then we saw a little bit of Keelan, which if you're Sarkisian, you say, all right, maybe I got to get this guy on the field a little bit more just because of what he might be able to do. So having that kind of potential, and even to a certain degree beforehand, we saw there was times when Jordan Whittington got open in the Arkansas game. So maybe there are a good number of playmakers. And you're right, like, if you told me Xavier finishes with 700 to 800, I would say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's fine. And like you said, some highs and lows, and that's fine. But Ketch, if you tell me he starts to heat up as his season goes along, and we're looking at 1,000-yard receiver or 1,100, something to that effect. I mean,
never done before in the history of the program by a guy that at that age.
Correct. By the way, who was highly recruited, by the way, right?
Yes.
I mean, this was an elite kid coming out of high school.
This is why recruiting matters, because when national top 50 guys that run 10-5 of the 100 meters show up, when you and I go gaga over Evan Stewart, it's because, we're in an era right now where those types of receiver talents, and they've been coming through the state of Texas, and we're watching Jalen Waddle as a rookie right now for the Miami Dolphins. And that's what it looks like when those 5-star guys come through campus. They can totally blow the doors off. He falls into that elite of the elite category that, quite frankly, Texas doesn't have enough Xavier Worthys in the program. And Anwar, whenever we talk about Xavier Worthy, because Xavier Worthy was a 4-star, but whenever I have that conversation with everybody, I have it all the time, that 4 stars are mostly meaningless, because most 4 stars don't play and have the explosiveness of Xavier Worthy, right? Yeah. This is a guy that didn't have a senior year, so there are reasons why he hung on the fringe of 5-stardom. And then you just take your regular 4-star guy who's closer to it. Those they're not the same things. And if you're Texas, that's when you want to say, why does it matter? Because guys like Xavier Worthy can change programs, and Texas has got to recruit more of them. And we look at a guy like Evan Stewart and say, that might be as important as any guy that Texas could recruit. It's because you can take that guy and put him on almost any team in the country and imagine that next year he makes them so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
If Evan Stewart's at Alabama next year, I don't have to close my eyes and think very hard and go, oh, well, he's got a bunch of big time touchdowns next year as a true freshman, and everybody's going crazy for him. Same way Garrett Wilson at Ohio State. Like, those guys, if they had made it to Texas, this program is significantly better for just having 1 or 2 more talents like that. Real quick about the OrangeBloods thing, because I know that we got to go. This is the first year of NIL, and that we've gotten a chance to know. We wouldn't know Xavier Worthy at all if it wasn't for the NIL deal. The school might have made him available once so far.
Yes.
Probably one time. Maybe this week. Yeah. Maybe this week after Rice is when you make now he's made it a little bit. So now you make him available. We've got a chance to get to know him as a human being. I don't mean this to be insulting at all, because it's a word that some people can flinch to. He is so precocious to me. He really does. I don't think he has any. I think he has huge expectations for himself. as evidenced by his goal before, like on his first practice, was 800 yards and 10 touchdowns this season. He's so good. He doesn't understand that all of this is not normal, and him not understand that this feels so normal to him. It feels like what every interview I've watched him do with us, it feels like he just expects this of himself. And that you and I have been doing a video talking about how rare it is that a guy can do what he's doing, and he didn't have a senior year in high school, like where he got to play. Like he's only played 3 games since 2019. Like it's made this journey with him so much more enjoyable. It's fun watching Xavier Worthy play football because we do know him a little bit better than we've known all of these other kids. And to watch this guy that is just starting to come out of his shell, and it's humanized his performance in ways that we've never known before. But I have to admit, I kind of like it.
No, I do. It is really cool just to get the the behind the scenes, and like to your point, especially like I said, freshmen usually don't get a chance to talk, and you don't get a chance to really learn a ton about them. So yeah, he's a guy that you look at and you're like, well, yeah, okay. If he continues on this trajectory, you enjoy your 3 years that you have with him, and hopefully you have some success. I think the other good benefit of a guy like that, I think from a recruiting perspective, KETCH, Sarkisian can point to an Evan Stewart, right? And say,
so true.
Hey, you know what, dude? You saw what this guy came in here as a freshman and did, and and I can name you the guys who are upperclassmen behind. You could come in here and play right away and hit the ground running, and we'll throw the ball to you, and we'll throw the ball to you a lot of time. So I think from a recruiting perspective, it only helps and enhances the program. And if this is what he looks like now, raw, no off season with UT. This is what it just looks like as he's piecing it all together. And I think he's roommates with Bijan, so that's a really fascinating thing as well. But when the piece it all together, and then what does it look like even next year could be scary. What it could be to the point, KETCH. And one of the last things I'll say is, since I've been here, it's always been looking at those amazing OU receivers and feel like, man, those guys are playmakers, man. Like you're Hollywood Browns, like, man, the guys of the word, like you're like, man, that guy's good. And you haven't been able to say that a ton about the UT receivers. You've been like, they've been solid. They can sometimes get open, but not the whole take a hitch, take it to the house, those kind of things, bubble screen, and it's gone for like 60 yards. So Evan Stewart adds a dimension, a lot of different dimensions, whether it's what he brings as his presence here, KETCH, but from the athleticism, from recruiting, all that. So I'll be interested to see going forward as Casey Thompson essentially is looking for favorites, right? Because he doesn't necessarily have favorites now. So as he starts to figure out who his favorite targets are, Xavier Worthy seems to be the guy that's very high on his list.
I mean, if this is Vegas currently has Xavier Worthy as the favorite to be Casey Thompson's favorites, mainly because he was his big time favorite on Saturday in terms of targets, in terms of production. I mean, Xavier, things happened when he got the football, and what quarterbacks love? When they can have a whole bunch of passing yards and touchdowns. Like Aaron Rodgers got it last night. He's dumping the ball to Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones doing all the work for him, but Rodgers gets the credit. Quarterbacks love that. Yeah. Wait a minute. All I got to do is throw a very easy to complete pass to a wide receiver, and then he'll just do the rest and go 70. They love that. And Xavier Worthy makes playing quarterback easy for, and quite frankly, we talked even yesterday about Casey Thompson, and I'll shut up after this, but the one time so he hits the third down pass to Kelvonte Dixon. The only other time they were really going deep in that game was the ball that he was going to Xavier Worthy with, and the guy committed a pass interference penalty that doesn't get called. But, you could see that had 70-yard touchdown written all over it. And I don't get the sense that Xavier Worthy is going to be caught from behind a lot once he gets steps on guys. So, yeah, as we have this conversation about Xavier Worthy, his importance to what Texas can be offensively is off the roof. And to your point, it's the single biggest advantage that Texas has for Evan Stewart and his recruitment right now versus anybody else. Texas is saying, we'll play you right away. The best players play. They say that at Alabama and they say that at Florida too, but those schools have a lot of dudes who are super talented. Texas is going to say, we got one dude, Xavier Worthy, that we feel that way about, and we're going to play him a lot. They can send him a highlight tape every week and say, who does this look like? This is you in high school. This will be you next year. Look, we're doing it. There's nobody at Alabama and nobody at Florida right now that's quite being used exactly the way the Worthy's being used as a true freshman right now at Texas. And that could be a very sneaky little important quality in the Texas sales pitch that you can't put a value on. But I promise you, Anwar, you were so right. Evan Stewart is noticing what Texas is doing with Xavier Worthy. And that, more than any other element of his recruitment right now at any other school, is the thing that I think hits home every week right now. It's hitting home hard. Like, that dude's playing a lot, and I'm going to come in and play. I mean, he's looking at Joshua Moore and already licking his lips like, oh, that could be my spot. So, yeah, there's a lot of little things involved here. But if Texas gets Evan Stewart, Xavier Worthy's production as a true freshman may end up low-key being as important as any element in that entire recruitment. Do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bells, tell your friends. Take this link of this video, email it to your friends that love University of Texas football. Let them into the Cool Kids Club, which is all this amazing content that we're producing on a daily basis right here on the OrangeBloods Texas football channel. For myself and Anwar Richardson, and just stunning stripes today. Stripes are such a good look on you. We will do this again tomorrow. You guys be good to each other. Take care. Later.